How do you talk about death with a family before crisis forces your hand? Former nurse, end-of-life educator, and good friend of the pod, Monica Kumar, joins us again today to share practical conversation starters about death and dying, how to bring up death with aging parents, and how starting with legacy instead of logistics can reshape the very foundations of these tender conversations.
Yeah, it's such a good and important thing. We really enjoyed talking to Monica again. She brought really grounded and no pressure guidance, I think, that can help anyone who's meaning to have this conversation and wanted to, but just didn't know where to start. And I meet people all the time that tell me that's the case. So this is a great podcast. Please enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Armendariz, and today we are pleased to talk with our friend and former guest, Monica Kumar. Monica is an end-of-life educator and a former nurse from Vancouver, Canada, who is now based in Tulum, Mexico. She creates structured, values-based planning resources that help people prepare for medical, legal, financial, and personal decisions before a crisis. She is a creator of Life's Lasting Plan, One Night at the Table, and If Something Happens to Me, and the author of Beyond Loss, The Power of Purposeful Grief. Thanks for
Yeah.
being here.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me again.
So
So
much
nice to be
great-
here.
So much great stuff. Can't wait to hear more about all that. So Monica tells us her work is shaped by her personal experience. Conversations about death were a normal part of her family life, which is unique in some ways. And when her mother died suddenly, that foundation of openness allowed her to navigate decisions and responsibilities with greater clarity, even in the midst of grief. So through her work as a nurse and educator, she has seen how difficult these moments can be when important conversations and guidance are missing, and it's often missing, right? Her programs provide step-by-step structure, audio guidance, and written tools that help people clarify their wishes and communicate them in ways that reduce future uncertainty for the people closest to them. What an amazing work. Thank you so much.
Yay, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So last time we talked about the why having these conversations around death were really important. And now you've got new work that's come out and you're working with the how to have these talks. So tell us more about that.
So it's been interesting because I had these works, well, the big program, Life's Lasting Plan, which had a different name before that I've changed the name also based on some feedback of people going through the programs. But what I've noticed a lot with people is that when I talk about what I do, I'm sure you guys have experienced this too. When I talk about what I do, they're like, oh my God, if I only wish I would have known about somebody like you when my dad was going through something or my mom was going
Right.
through something before we had the crisis, sort of, right? But at the same time, we are constantly coming into contact with the people that are in the pre, and they resist, right? Because they're like, we're not there yet. Oh, no, we don't want to talk about that yet. And then,
Yep.
space crisis. Now it's like, oh my gosh, if I would have known about people like you before. And so, as educators and facilitators and all of the different terms that we have for ourselves doing this work, is like, how do we close that gap? Where is the opportunity to close that gap so that less people have to say, if only, right?
Right.
Beautiful.
And so I think for me, it's been really encouraging people around, and we did talk about this a little bit last time, but I've kind of gotten more in depth of this, of like how to start the conversations. I heard that you guys had a podcast recently about that, right? How to start the conversations so that they feel less threatening, I guess is the word, and
Nerve-wracking.
nerve-wracking and overwhelming,
Right.
right? And more, I mean, I almost want to say encouraging, but I guess I'll just try to explain that with this next sentence, that when we open the conversation with death, or we open the conversation with who's going to get the car or, something like that, people tend to shut down more. And if we have other ways of starting the conversation, perhaps people wouldn't shut down as much. So what are those other ways that we can start the conversations? And, giving sort of a variety of options so that,
Right.
different people can apply it to themselves. So
It's like starters.
Yeah.
and so for me, I've really seen that, just talking about life is the starting
Yeah.
point, and not
Yeah.
talking about death, right? Talking about what matters, what's the most important. And so even in that, I've changed the sort of subtitle of my work, as instead of end of life planning, I've now started calling it life and legacy planning.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then also the name of my program has changed to Life's Lasting Plan, also taking away the whole idea of like, having to state so literally like end of life, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say I think there's room for all those different types of titles, right? Because you will find people who are okay with the death word and others won't be, but you're going to be offering a place for talking about life, which includes death. But I appreciate that. Yeah, language matters.
Language matters.
matters when we're having any kind of conversations that makes people feel vulnerable.
Or really any types of conversations. Like I was just having a conversation this weekend about something completely else, how I can say the exact same thing to 5 different people in the exact same way, and every single person is going to take it differently, right? So some people can really handle that directness of, we're going to talk about end of life, and it's also more recognizable and a little bit more literal, right? Where they know exactly what you're talking about. If someone would know exactly what you were talking about if you said end of life planning or estate planning. That's another sort of, semantics that, and it doesn't mean even that I say the exact same thing to every single person, but I have kind of gone more into this idea of talking about it as life. Or another thing that people really understand is estate planning. And so I've sort of, broadened the definition of what that means within my program, where I kind of consider it or call it modernized estate planning or holistic estate planning, because as before we talked about, like, there was a time where people were kind of a little bit more just assets based, Say, for example, before there were so many options within healthcare, or before families were more, fragmented or just differently structured than they are today, things were more straightforward in a certain way. And so I just kind of, feel like these documents that we have, trusts, wills, power of attorney, and all of these things, they're exactly the same as they've always been. For a long time anyways. And so moving into 2026, how does even basic estate planning or the understanding of estate planning have to broaden and change and be a little bit more holistic as well?
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. Somebody we interviewed a while back said they like to talk about living the dash. So it's like between,
That's
you know,
right.
the date of your birth and the date of your death, and there's that dash in between. So I love that you're bringing that in, and really talking about the holistic. I love that word too. Holistic way of looking at estate planning and legacy, and so that's so important. Great, wonderful work. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Very appreciated.
And helping
And
people also to see what legacy is. A lot of people believe that legacy is this really massive thing that they have to leave behind. And if they're not leaving one of those sort of classic ways that people, like a charity somewhere or something, then they don't really see what they are leaving as a legacy. But also helping people to understand that there's so many things, big and small, and the small things can be so big as far as
Yeah,
legacy
and
goes,
precious. They're also precious,
so
right?
precious,
Right.
so
Yeah,
precious. Yeah.
yeah. like Ana Luisa talks about her toys, right? Who gets to
My
have my
legacy.
toys? That's her legacy, right?
Yeah.
All my Funko Pop figures.
Oh my gosh, well, I don't even know what that is.
Oh my God. Don't go down that
We're
rabbit
not going to
hole.
go down that road. Yeah. Like recipes. I feel like legacy is also just like anything that keeps your spirit alive in people, keeps your name or your
Mhm.
role alive in people's minds and people's hearts, out of people's mouths, right? So food is a
Yeah.
massive thing for certain
Right.
families. My family was a card writing family. Like we wrote cards to each other, and like we wrote cards. Like the whole card was filled out. It wasn't like to, from, whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
And I have all of them that, all three of us, my
Mhm.
mom, my brother, and me all wrote to each other. And to me,
That's a
that's
legacy.
also, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
That's
legacy.
beautiful.
All
Yeah.
the beautiful words that we said to each other and those kinds of
Lovely.
things. So,
Lovely.
so yeah, so moving on from the starting of the conversation is also how to help people feel like the conversation is doable, contained. So it's not just having a start, it's also having a scope and
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
a time limit, even perhaps. So the one night at the table, for example, is I took I guess a section out of the big program Life's Lasting Plan that includes medical and legal and financial and I just did the medical. So it's kind of similar to other um, documents and formats that are out there to help people with medical planning, but just, in a different language and a little bit of a different format for who that speaks to. And I kind of tried to make it so that you could have this within a 90-minute
Yeah.
conversation with your family. And that at the end of that, even though maybe you're not complete in your planning, you do feel like you have something
Started.
tangible
Yeah.
and useful right
Right.
there, right? It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, we did this, but now we still have to do this and that before we have something that's like actually usable. Because the other thing is when people try and have these conversations, if they don't have any sort of direction or, sort of
framework.
step-by-step framework to go by, the conversation can go to so many different places.
Yeah.
And people can feel like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to have this conversation. I put the effort, I was brave, I brought it out. And then we talked about so many things
Except the thing.
or we
Right.
talked about the thing, but we didn't get any clarity out of it.
Yeah,
We didn't
a
get any
resolution.
answers out of it or
Yeah,
any
yeah.
forward where we can go from here to kind of get it. So yeah,
I
this
love
idea
yeah.
of a conversation container. So a start,
Yeah.
a scope, a time limit, and then clear next direction,
Beautiful.
whatever that is.
That's great.
So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I think that's part of, it's like I was a project manager, so having those
Flow.
the flows and the things you want to get to and the timelines. That's so cool to put that in that way. Can you tell us more about the way that same structure can be used across different areas of planning? Because you mentioned that you can also use this for other things. And the same tools can guide people through other processes that they're going through, kind of step by step.
As far as the end of life planning or life and
Well,
legacy
yeah,
planning,
just
or
the project in general, this kind of step by step, like you said, the container that you've created.
So
Yeah.
the mini ones that I've created are the two. One is if something happens to me, and that is specifically for parents of young children. And so also imagine if you're trying to think of like if people, because I do think everyone who has children, I don't have children, but I imagine that everybody who has children, even briefly, would have thoughts of like, what if something happens to me?
Sure.
And then if they tried to sort of within their own mind think about everything that they would have to plan for, again, it would feel very overwhelming. So I wanted to create something that helped people to, this was from an suggestion from a friend of mine that has young children, to have the 4 most important things that you should plan for your children, either for you to be able to have this conversation with your partner, between the parents of the children or with the greater family, and talk about myths and ideas that people have that aren't true, such as godparents having any kind of like legal authority over children or legal responsibility. And so she told me that she thought that would be a good idea. So if something happens to me. So that has guardianship, financial resources that exist today, how the people that have the guardianship would be able to access that, and how the parents' wishes of how those finances would be used. And then again, medical decision making for the parents, sort of big picture things like CPR and ventilation, because that's again like, showing values and guiding the direction of something that could potentially happen. And then the last thing is, how do you make those three things that you've just covered legally binding? So that, again, you have like something very tangible, very useful, and quite complete that you have just from doing those four things without doing anything else yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you actually, I'm just curious, what do you recommend people do for that one, to legalize it?
So guardianship has to be in a will, right? That's part of what that's part of what goes in your will. So if you do have minor children or dependent adults, the only way to make that legally binding as far as guardianship goes is in a will. And then financial is just giving that right. Yeah.
But the will is going to have to be done either with a notary. I'm just asking the legal aspect of that document. You'd have to go through a notary or
A
because sometimes
lawyer.
a lawyer. So there is a cost to this to make it binding.
Binding, yeah, legal binding, yeah.
Yeah, and that's I make that even with the one night at the table, the medical planning. I think that in theory, if you had my documents that I've created that have all of your decisions and a signature and your decision maker or your proxy, say also always try and explain to people that they're not actually they should not actually be a medical decision maker, right? They shouldn't actually be making decisions for you. They should be using your voice and not having that weight on them. So I like healthcare proxy is a better term for that in a way. So, I feel like, say, if you had that document made, done, completed, my document, and there was no other legal documentation, I feel like,
It's standing.
It would stand because no one else is arguing or whatever. But obviously the best course of action is to make it legally whatever the advance directives are for your state or for your region.
Right. And that's what I was going to get to, because I think that for what I do in Colorado, I just have 2 witnesses if I don't have a notary, and that is sufficient in the state of Colorado. But I just was thinking about that I've never thought about the guardianship piece. I mean, I've thought about it for my own kids, but I've always like, I'll talk to the people and not really, So I have found myself over the years prior to starting this work that I got hung up with the lawyer piece, because every time I called a lawyer, it was always so prohibitively expensive to do that small part, like the guardianship. So, I just I wish we had more access for folks to get these papers done without having to hire a lawyer to make it binding. It's just kind of interesting to me. Just thinking
there
about that.
are, and I haven't checked this for if you can include guardianship in this, but there are now online sort of, if you have a very simple estate, for example, there are online platforms that you can sort of do your own will online, and then the only thing that needs to be done in the end is I think a lawyer needs to sign for it. So it's a very affordable, like even $40. But I haven't, and I should now actually check to see if there's any way that guardianship can be included in that. So, but going back to that for your situation, for example, yes, talking to the people, but there's also a sort of, what would the right word be? Like a how when a hierarchy, exactly. And there's a certain way that the court, looking at your situation, like say at your family or, who the options were.
Family, blood kin first, and then,
But even within your family, see, there's, there's also a certain factors
Yeah.
that they look at to see, oh, this person, you want this person to take care of your child because they are most aligned with your values, and you're the one that, and you've had the conversations with them, and they know, and everyone knows. But if there's no legal document, the
Right.
court might decide, well, this person actually
Yeah.
has more resources,
Right.
money,
Right.
really,
Right.
and so the kid's going to be better off with them, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
and that's the danger of not having it.
It is. It
legally
really,
documented.
truly is. I've
Mhm.
thought about that, and I also, I have hit walls in my personal planning because of the lawyer
The
piece.
funding, yeah.
On that note as well, still, this is a part of the reason why, and I don't know, I feel like I've contributed to this, but you can confirm or not confirm to me. Like, I feel like getting people 100% set up in the
Yeah.
maximum that I can for their appointments with their lawyers,
Yeah.
that can reduce cost of the lawyer because they're
Yeah.
not having to go through from
100%.
scratch from
Right.
them,
Yeah.
right?
And the lawyer is going to be like, they have their boilerplate of how they want to manage you for
Yeah.
their time.
Yeah.
But it is very helpful to show up with all of this already
Exactly.
exhausted
Right,
all
as
the
much as
thoughts, right?
possible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And you're
yes,
just going,
you're
I
right.
have this ready for you.
Yes.
Right.
That's so right.
And also, just to be open and honest also, and just say, you know what, I need to reduce your fee, so I've created this thing, and,
Yeah.
hopefully we can get
Yeah.
it done in 1 hour or a maximum 2 hours of a lawyer's time and be done,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. I will say that I have a disabled daughter, and so I'm working on a trust for her. But I got waylaid for the same thing. Like the lawyer piece, I did go for an hour with this lawyer, and then the clock starts running, right?
Mhm.
And then I have to like figure out so many different aspects that are really difficult to decide on because like I'm a single mom and she has a father, and there's so many different layers to taking care of this kiddo that yeah, I put that on the shelf.
Yeah.
I have not
Yeah.
looked at that since February, and so yeah,
I
it's
hear
hard.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. I mean,
It
one
is
of the things
hard.
that we've heard over and over again in teaching planning and these things is people who either don't have anybody they feel like they can trust as a healthcare agent or the power of attorney, or of course the amount of money is just so hard. It costs a lot of money to die in the United States, so probably anywhere, but mostly and more here, I think. But so we actually, I'm just starting a nonprofit to specifically address that, to try to help people find those resources that are less expensive, and then hopefully raise money to help them pay for resources. So that's, but I think that's still a huge gap in our country for many,
Yeah.
many people. And guardianship is one of the ways you could do that because there's somebody who's, vetted to be a safe, fair fiduciary. But it's not free and it costs some money. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm having a conversation with our local person this next week to see what kind of connection we could make through this organization with like making a collaboration of some sort so we could find people who say, yeah, I would be willing to do this for less money.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do go to the attorney, if you just say, I can't afford your price, sometimes I found there are attorneys who will say, okay, we can do better for you.
Work on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also the thought about attorneys, I didn't realize this, but the attorney I started this process with, he wants to know how he's going to be paid after I die to
Right.
like take care of the things. So he's like, so where are you going to leave money for me to spend time taking care of all
Take care
this?
of it, yeah.
And I was like, wow, I don't know. Like, I'll get back to you.
Right.
Yeah. So it's so multi-layered, but I do appreciate, Monica, that you set out the framework for people to carry it to whomever, right? Like depending on your state
Yeah.
or your country, like what does it really mean? And at least having a foundation piece to set it down somewhere.
So
And that, I mean, it's still better that thing exists
Right.
than
Yeah.
not exists, even if you don't get it legally bound,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if you can be sure, for example, that, I mean, I can't ever be 100% sure, but there's different, levels of sure that you can be, that if you've decided that this is who you want your daughter to go to, and even if you haven't had, have it legally binded, that you are, somewhat sure that people aren't going to argue your decision,
Right.
right?
Well, and every time I leave the country, a friend of mine reminds me, he's like, all you have to do is write up a thing, sign it, take it to the bank and have them just notarize it. That
Yeah.
this was a thought that you had. This is your current, standing on this decision making.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's small, it's a thing, but it's better than nothing.
It's better
Yeah.
than nothing.
Yeah.
And like I heard that you in this this is not the case in Canada, I don't think, but you can get things notarized at the bank for about $20 or something.
Actually, my bank. Well, I have
Get your own bank, yeah.
Yeah, I have a bank. I don't actually bank there anymore, but my ex-husband kept our things open, so I'm still officially on that bank, and it's free at that bank. But my credit union is a little different, which irritates me because at the credit union you have to bring in your own witnesses. So I've tried to go there to get things notarized, and he's like, "Nope, you have to bring people in with you to do this."
Two
So
people?
So yes, so it is contingent on which bank you're at and if you are a member there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's still because when I was doing my advanced care planning specialist schooling,
Training?
it was in the States, and so they're talking like, okay, and then do this and get it notarized, and then do this and get it
Yeah.
notarized, and do this and get it notarized. I'm like, I live in Mexico.
Yeah.
Notaries are higher than lawyers here. That's
Yeah.
in the reverse, and there's no going to
Right.
the Bank of America and getting something notarized. It's you cannot get every single document notarized here.
Right.
It's a
But
big
like in
cost.
Colorado, it is you can do a notary like for advanced care directive when I did my training, they said it would be great if you had a notary, but 2 witnesses are all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as those witnesses aren't actually in that document as the proxy, then you're fine. So I've always just had people come with, like there's a bunch of us, let's just sign each other's papers.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Well,
See,
that's
and again, like
different
how
everywhere too. I mean, it's different in every jurisdiction too. So it's another thing we keep emphasizing, and make sure you know what's right,
Check.
what'll work in your. But I think it's really true that even if it's not all the legally binding stuff that we talked about, if it ends up in the court, if it ends up in intestacy or in whatever the word is,
Probate.
probate, yeah. The court is going to pay attention to the things that you've written and recorded. There's a much better chance that your wishes will be
Right.
fulfilled.
they have nothing versus something.
Yeah.
Something, right.
Yeah. And I feel the same about healthcare decision makings, right?
Yeah.
Like decision making. I feel like, hopefully doctors and, other healthcare providers are concerned and would like to see what your wishes are. And if there's something versus something perfect and legally bound, that they
Yeah.
still are going to, recognize that and take it into consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
And that comes back a little bit to your healthcare proxy a little bit too, where you say I really encourage people when in the program that choose your healthcare proxy and say if you're having a conversation with somebody about, okay, who is your healthcare proxy? Who would you like to be speaking for you? And ask them why they're choosing that person and get them to really, sort of again reflect on why are they choosing that person? Are they the right person? And one of the qualities of those people is, are they going to be able to advocate for you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And are they going to be able to say, no, this is what they wanted, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that that happens. Because you can, there's a lot of power struggle in the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Against.
Yeah, I teach that in one of my courses that I teach racial, economic, and cultural differences in end of life. And I always tell people who are POC if you can find a white person, a white male who can be part of the hospital interface, if there are things that are really important to you that you find that people may not be wanting to support, you need somebody who's going to be easier for that person to interface with the medical system.
Wow. Yeah.
That is a thing. I mean, as a Chicana in this country, I've witnessed this firsthand, and I've had to switch my proxies for that reason. Just be like, it's hard in this country when you show up as maybe
Minority.
a second language English speaker or POC, something that we know studies show that those as soon as a person sees that, they're kind of dismissed in a way. So yeah, there's a lot of considerations to take when choosing that person for sure.
Yeah. That really hit me, what you just said.
Yeah.
Because it's just one of those things that we absolutely don't want to think that that's what we have to do today still.
Mhm.
You know, we
That'd
would
be
hope
nice.
that no, that's not what we have to
Yeah.
do. Actually, that people are more educated and are like,
No.
you know, and yeah,
No.
that is
It's not the thing. And so, yeah, when I'm teaching this class with chaplains, I always tell them to be aware of this potential issue and be an ally for folks if they're in a hospital situation and
Mhm.
a family is having a hard time being heard,
Yeah.
or culturally they are embarrassed to ask for what they want.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because it might
So
be
true.
very different from what
it's
another
acceptable,
culture, or
right?
yeah, what's acceptable or another culture would want, or
Right.
how they would proceed with. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. All right.
Do you have anything you would define as really big challenges in this work that you're doing that are the hardest things to get by, or yeah, that you found has been like people
What's a
aren't
barrier?
responding? Yeah, barrier.
Um,
That's a good word
I
for it.
mean, it's always the resistance. It's always the
Mhm.
resistance, right?
Yeah.
And
Fear.
actually, fear, resistance, avoidance. And I've actually found that because, as we've talked about, I live in Tulum, so I'm very sort of isolated from other professionals or even really from like a quote unquote normal society, right? So everyone here is kind of young and
Wait,
free
wait,
and
wait. It's yeah, it's like a different it's a you live in a normal society if they're in Tulum.
well, have you been here?
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. No, but I'm saying is like the normalcy of well, actually you live in a place where a lot of illegal immigrants, probably white illegal immigrants, are trying to do whatever they want to do, right? So the normalcy for the people of Tulum is there. It's just the outsiders who have intruded and are like taking up space, or like this is the way we should have it here.
Mhm. But like with the demographic of people that are here, are quite the average age of the immigrant, as you say, population here is pretty low. Like it's young, quite young, obviously very diverse, very like free, and so interestingly, when I go to these events here where there's a lot of women or a lot of people, and we present what we do, and so when I present what I do, and usually I talk more about my meta goal, which is to contribute to this shift of culture where talking about death is more normalized. I don't necessarily always talk about the planning, or sometimes I talk about my
Mhm.
book because it's more about grief. And young people will come to me and say, "Oh, I'm so happy that you talked about that because I've really wanted to talk. I just
Yeah,
really want to talk about
yeah.
death." This is why death cafes have been very
Mhm.
successful in a lot of places in the world and stuff. So, but then that doesn't really lead to, and I'm happy for that. I'm happy for that because that is my meta goal, as I say. But it's not, these people are not the same people that are encouraged now to start planning,
Right,
right?
right.
Like they just want to talk about it. They've been through something, they or themselves or a family member, and so um, there's still, even though that there sometimes is a real desire to talk about death, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you just took the taboo out of it. It doesn't actually necessarily lead to, there's still avoidance when it comes to planning and resistance to planning, like, oh no, but I don't want to talk about I'm 25 years old and I want to talk to you about death, but I don't want to go and now talk to my mom
Mhm.
about
Sure.
planning, right?
Mhm.
So that's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest challenge is
Yeah.
just, and again, what we talked about at the very beginning, that if I only would have known about you,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
but if
Right.
you had have known about me, you most, often
You
would
wouldn't
have
have used my
you wouldn't have
services.
used my services, right? So
Yeah.
that is the biggest
Mhm.
challenge. The biggest
Sure.
challenge is that everyone knows on some level,
Mhm.
right, that we should be planning for
Yeah.
this. They should be talking to their parents,
Right.
whatever it is, right? So that's the
Uh,
biggest challenge.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there
Yeah.
you go. You got the conversation container to help you get that thing started.
That's
great.
right. That's
Because
right.
then I'm like, well, what about if you
Yeah.
you're not going to go to your mom and say, Mom, when you die, or if you get really sick, what's going to happen? No, you're going to start with this other conversation and
Yeah.
all the
Mhm.
examples that are there. Would you feel better about having that conversation?
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. It's
And yeah,
perfect. That's great.
That's right.
Really good.
So, what frightens you about the end of life? We've asked you this before.
We've asked you,
has it changed?
I mean,
Yeah, has
yes and
anything
no.
changed?
It's I just not knowing how, where, when, and if really if I'm going to be alone or not. Like I think, and not in the moment of death, but in what's leading up to death. How much am I going to suffer? Like what are what's going to be available to me at the time? Like I don't know that we talked about this the last time, but I'm Canadian. Lived in Mexico now for almost 10 years. I really feel like I don't identify with Canada really anymore. I can't see myself going back there. But one of the things that, I mean, I would almost go back there just because I want to have access to MAID at some point,
Yeah.
because that, Mexico, you can kind of get it done like a true euthanasia kind of thing privately, I guess it would be called. But I don't think that MAID will ever become widely accepted in Mexico just because of the Catholicism.
The Catholic culture.
Although it has been happening in other Latin American countries slowly, but from massive activism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a documentary about somebody in Argentina, Chile. I don't remember, but it was the whole end of their life. It was really beautiful. But yes, it's coming, hopefully, but slowly in some places. Yeah, but I'm glad that you have a little bit of a plan, if that is the case, to go back to Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know when, though, right? Like, because we don't
Right,
know
yeah.
when.
Yeah,
Well,
that's right.
obviously, I think, okay, no, I'll wait a little longer until I'm like, I don't know, 65, 70. I don't know. But then at that point, I feel like I would be more disconnected from Canada, less identified with the place,
Right.
and so going back there would be to what, and like just for that
Just to
sort of
die,
thing,
right?
yeah. But all I can do, the best that I do is just try and keep myself as well as possible, take care of myself as best as I can,
Yeah.
and hope that I stay as functional as possible until
Yeah.
May it be so.
that's
may it
all.
be
That's
so.
all we can do is something we
Yeah.
don't really have any
That's right.
control over, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
a mystery for
It's
sure.
a mystery. It's a mystery, and the dementia, which is what we talked about last time. That is still
I totally hear that. Yeah.
It's.
Well, we're kind of toward the end of the time. Is there anything you wish we would have asked you about?
I mean, there probably is, but I can't think of it right now. I think that was a really lovely conversation, and I think we touched some really good points throughout, and hopefully, it reaches people. And they
Yeah, I hope
start
it
thinking
will.
about
I
it more.
certainly add all these things in the list so that in the podcast notes so people can reach out and learn more. I really appreciate what you're doing. It's so important and
Thank you.
Yeah,
such a
and I
tricky
go
thing
ahead.
sometimes. No, go
No,
ahead.
It's a tricky thing, but you know what I really appreciate about your work is that you're listening to the feedback that you're getting,
Yeah.
because it behooves us to figure out language or no language that supplements the feeling of wanting to take care of something, right? Like we want to take care of you, the you being whoever's closer to the end of life. And we were just talking to somebody who had talked about checklists and how we're just handed checklists to do the thing at the end of life, like do this, do this, do this, and this is a good death. And there is space for that, but there's also space for listening and trying, not trying, but just listening and being present to whatever comes up in a way that you need to include that person in this conversation, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not going to be one way or the other. It's we're all different.
Yeah.
Different things trigger us into different places, but I appreciate that you are listening and that you're shifting your conversations. It's important.
Thank you. And also, it's like having those conversations, like a checklist. Actually, that's sort of part of my messaging around, what I do, that this is much more than documents, much more than checklists. And having conversations, like even if you don't end up checking things off, if you are truly listening, you can extract.
You'll find it. Yes.
You can
Yeah.
extract something out of those conversations that can help give you some direction, right?
Absolutely.
Some value, something that's super
Right.
important, something that means quality of life to that person.
That's right.
You know, can extract
that in a
something from
nutshell
it.
is exactly what it is. Like, you're
Mhm.
listening for those pieces that are important to this human life
Mhm.
in their path in this world, right?
Mhm.
Because I always tell my kids, I may end up in a situation that we have not talked about, but you will know that I have a value system around being able to walk out in nature. I have a value system about, being a little mobile to get around and do my own thing, because I'm a mountain goat. Like, I just need to like run around a little bit.
Mhm.
And eating and reading my books, like, those are values. So if any of those things interferes with that as a potential life, then my kids are like, yeah, mom would not want this. And
Yeah.
so you're listening for those value pieces as you
Absolutely.
carry on. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, you can apply them to other things. Like, I always say in the planning, especially the caregiving planning part of my the complete plan. So the complete plan includes planning for caregiving. And obviously we're not going to be able to plan for every
that's right.
situation, for every scenario.
That's right.
But having that sort of, you know, structure and frameworked, and like the way that they thought about it, it can just help to
Yeah.
lead you to all of the
Yep.
other,
Absolutely.
possible scenarios. And so,
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
bring it
thank
back
you.
all to the conversation. Just have the conversations.
Have
Have
the
the conversation. Have the conversation. Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
we said
Oh.
this? Did we remind you to have a conversation?
Yes.
Conversation. Any conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Monica,
Yeah.
thank you for your
Yeah.
hard labor of helping other people through this time.
Yeah.
And
And
to
thanks for
you.
getting back in touch and letting us know more
Mhm.
about your ongoing
Yeah.
work.
I love obviously everything that you guys are doing too. And if you could send me information at some point about the was it an NGO that you said you were starting,
Oh,
or
nonprofit.
a nonprofit? Yeah.
Yeah.
And see if I can help in any way towards that. Because with people that go through my programs, they also have the opportunity to have have calls with me throughout.
Mhm.
And so that's the way that I sort of help people to, instead of, if they don't want to do it or they can't do it, I help them to figure out what's correct in their region, or
perfect.
what resources are available in their
Yeah.
That's
region. So
great.
that way I kept my programs very universal.
Mhm.
But that's how I help people more individually, or region based, or province based, state based, wherever they are.
Beautiful.
So if I can help in any way, I'm happy to
Oh, thank
do
you.
that.
I really
Yay,
appreciate
Monica.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Conversations about the end of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.